Jujutsu, which is a combination of Jujutsu and Aikijutsu. That's very helpful. So that's what I think attracted me to the weapon. The fact that it's deep, it's profound. There's a lot to it. There's so many different elements you have to be thinking about. You need to look straight ahead at your enemy, yet you have to know the position of your scabbard. You've got to be careful that you don't cut your fingers. There's so many elements. You've got to multitask. And that's what I think attracted me to the sword.
Yeah, while walking around and not in the dojo, would the samurai wear their rank obis?
No. The rank is a modern thing. Actually, a rank obi, or a rank belt, was created in 1882 by by the founder of Kodokan Judo. Thank you. Jigoro Kano is the founder of Judo. He's an educator, and what he decided to do was he decided to incorporate a formal belt or ranking system. And so samurai weren't walking around with ranks. Basically, you held a high rank if you survived, if you were living. So if you're walking alive, then obviously your rank was good. Yes. In a sense of a what? Oh, I did a stab down. Maybe that was it. When I turned around and went, oh. Well, let me say this, that sometimes when you pull the scabbard out and you pop it back, you're pummel striking it. Okay? So trust me, every little move that I do has a reason. I don't just kind of do it because it looks good. It has to have some sort of practical reason. That's probably what it was. I did a bunch of techniques. I'm not sure what technique it was, but it's probably a pummel strike, some sort of strike with the end of the weapon. So, all right. So yes, that's okay. No, please. Okay, that's a great question. Who would have trained the samurai? Okay. Well, typically, a samurai had a master, which was called a daimyo, and excuse me if my pronunciation isn't right, but daimyo. And basically, that particular samurai, his duty was to his master, the daimyo, and what would happen was, if he had a child, typically the firstborn son of the family would become the predecessor, the next samurai. And so the father would train the son. But you would think if he was out in battle, how would he be training his son who's at home? Well, during times, when he was around, he might give the son some lessons, and then the son might practice. And actually, typically a child would wield a wakizashi, shorter sword, until he was able to actually have the arm length and the skill to be able to maneuver the katana correctly. And so the father would train the son. So actually what's interesting is that during the Sengoku period, which was a period between, and excuse me if I'm a little off with dates, between about 1350 and 1450, there was this period of unrest in Japan. And during that time, there was like a puppet government and another government, and during this time there was a lot of upheaval, and what was happening was many different clans were trying to take over land, parcels of land, and during that time so many different sword systems began to proliferate, and so during that time there were systems that were very young in their development, and then they didn't work, then gone. All right. So a father would teach his son, and usually, again, it was the firstborn son of the family that he would teach. So if you count how many generations, and again, it was usually the firstborn son was privy. That was it. So as I was saying, this sword art that most of my system evolved from went 18 generations. Then remember, it was within that, it was up to that son to keep it alive. So it's amazing. There were at one time there were thousands of ryu, there were thousands of styles, and it was probably during that Sengoku period. And as quick as they came about, they were extinguished because they died. And however, there are still many ryu that are being practiced, either in secret or just not in Kinokuniya bookstore, for example. There are many ryu that people don't know of, and and they're out there. But the samurai sword is actually iai-jutsu and kenjutsu are pretty esoteric arts. They're few people who study them, and I actually haven't found a lot of people in the United States in general that study them. Iaido and kendo, yes, but not iai-jutsu and kenjutsu. Any other questions? A lot of questions. Yeah.
I know there was a certain period of time when a peasant was able to rise through the ranks and become a samurai. How would he have learned? Who would have taught him? Or would he have self-taught?
Who would have taught him?
How to wield the samurai sword?
Honestly, I have no idea. I'm not going to even go there because I have no idea. I don't know. I'm not sure. That's a good question. Remember, there was a very strict caste system. The system was, you were a samurai, a farmer, a merchant, which were, looked very lowly upon. It was actually more like you had the shogun, then you had the daimyo, which was the regional lord. Then below that, this is the feudal system. And below that, you had the samurai. Then below that, maybe it was a farmer, then an artisan, and then maybe the layman, and then the last was like the business person or the merchant. Look in order of how people were respected. And I'm not sure how much upward movement there could have been between, in terms of, like, for example, a layman or a merchant becoming a samurai. I'm not sure that could have really happened.
Was Tokugawa originally a peasant?
I have no idea.
I know it was one of the shoguns from around that period. Started off as a peasant.
Really, I'm not sure. You can educate me on that. I don't know.
I'll research it up.
Okay.
But,
I'm not. By the way, I'm no Japanese historian. I know. I have a basic understanding of Japanese history, but I have a good understanding of the samurai sword arts. That's what I'm here for. Any other questions?
When you spar
it's called bogyowaza when you do defensive techniques, like when you fence, right?
Yeah, when you fence
Okay.
with boken, you wear protective gear, right?
No. In kenjutsu, when we spar, we start off in a very controlled manner. Okay? And then as you get more skilled at it, we then lose the control, do more of an uncontrived kind of thing, which I'm going to do for you here, but it's not going to be with swords, it's going to be with fists. But that, to me, actually wearing gear, I don't know, to me that's a little bit unrealistic. I think it's more important to do things slowly, learn how to handle it, and then maybe you get popped or something that's not going to be too devastating, but you do it slow, and with anything, if you do it slow, add a little speed on it, when you get better, you'll be able to handle yourself. That's just my philosophy on it. Yes?
Kind of a two-part question.
Sure.
Can you tell me a little bit about what motivated you to start your own style, your own system, and then also what just from I don't quite know what the word is, but sensibility point of view, what changes did you make to the systems that you studied to create your own
That's an
systems?
interesting question. Okay. My teacher is, by the way, a Caucasian. He's an American. And he's been studying the martial arts for, I want to say 55 years or so. He's almost 70. And he is one of the few people ever to receive a 9th Dan on Okinawa. In fact, there are very, very few Caucasians get that honor. Because the Okinawans feel that only the Okinawans can do the martial arts. That's what my teacher tells me. Okay? Anyway, he was granted a sokoship, which means that he's the head of his own ryu, the head of his own style. And via that, his teacher, whose name is Tomosoke, as well as Kisei Soke, who's another famous Okinawan martial artist.